So Shadowsun is back, and she has more guns than ever. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy and tactics focused 40k channel, where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the tabletop. Today brings us to the first proper review of a Xenos model, because I felt like taking a look at Commander Shadowsun with her new and upgraded rules. She was a fairly reasonable choice for a new model with the Greater Good Codex, as part of Games Workshop's crusades to eliminate the ghost of Finecast from their miniature range, and I think they've done a good job with the sculpt. They've managed to keep her with her iconic 2 fusion blasters, while also fairly subtly adding even more guns on the top of those. I guess when you're Tau you can never quite have too many guns. In this review we'll take a look at her datasheet, any obvious combos and synergies on the battlefield, and how I would think about running her in a game of 40k. In the background, Shadowsun, or Oshazera, is the current Tau Empire Supreme Commander. She was selected to replace the former Renegade Commander Farsight, who alongside him she studied under the legendary Commander Puretide. Her signature wargear is an XV-22 stealth battlesuit, incorporating both a stealth generator and a jetpack, and her primary armament of dual fusion blasters, and is currently leading the 5th sphere of Tau expansion. So let's see what the Supreme Commander can do on the tabletop now, with her new upgraded Stalker battlesuit. So Shadowsun is as ever an HQ choice for Codex Tau Empire, with her rules in the new Greater Good book. She didn't initially have a points cost attached to her profile unfortunately in the book, but Games Workshop have released an errata to say that she's 127 points, which is the same as it was previously when she had her attached drones. You buy her as a unit of 3 with 2 drones, there's no options on that front, and to be honest she seems pretty cheap for the sheer amount of special rules, not to mention the reasonable firepower that she puts out as well. Her profile's a little bit less tough than some of the standard battlesuit commanders, but she sort of makes up for it with her special rules. She has a movement of 8 and the fly keyword, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 2+, strength 4, toughness 4, 5 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 9 and a 3-up save, and she also has a 5+ invul save from that Stalker battlesuit. Her drones can both move 8 inches to keep up with her, and otherwise have the normal Tau drone profile, hitting on 5s, strength 3, toughness 4, 1 wound, 1 attack, leadership 6 and a 4-up save. When she's set up, you set up the drones next to her and they function as a separate unit from then on. We'll come back to the drones in a bit, but we'll focus on Shadowsun herself first. First of all, at base she comes equipped with 2 high energy fusion blasters, a light missile pod, a Flechette Launcher and a pulse pistol, and she can swap out the high energy fusion blasters for dispersed fusion blasters, which is a new option for her. Unfortunately it is not a multi-profile weapon, she has to pick one or the other at the start of the game. The high energy fusion blasters are an upgrade on her previous. They're basically the profile of a normal fusion blaster, except they have a very nice 24-inch range, which is a big deal for keeping her shooting while not having to throw her into the front of the enemy lines. The other option is to change to dispersed fusion blasters. These won't cost you any different points, they'll be the same. These ones only have the standard 18-inch range of fusion blasters. They're Assault 2, Strength 7, AP-4 and Damage D3. Like the regular fusion blasters, if you're within half range, so 9 inches, when determining the characteristic of the damage, you'll roll 2d3 and pick the highest. Now the way that the damage breaks down is that the high energy fusion blasters will do more damage to vehicles and other big multi-wound models, compared with the dispersed ones, provided they're toughness 7 or toughness 8. It's a fairly big difference on the toughness 8 targets, but not such a big deal on the toughness 7 ones. The high energies will get you an average of 4.5 wounds against your standard toughness 7 vehicle, and the dispersed ones will get you an average of 4 wounds. Though obviously having better range is an advantage for the high energy fusion blasters against these targets. In general, against most things that are weaker than toughness 7, you'll be better off with the dispersed fusion blasters, particularly against things like 2 wound infantry such as Primaris Intercessors. I honestly think that the 2 weapons are pretty well balanced, the high energy versions being superior against anti-armor, and the dispersed options being reasonably good against medium armor, but better against anything lighter. I could honestly go either way with them myself. Either way, it's a nice upgrade on her previous armament. The light missile pod is exactly what it sounds like. It's similar to a standard missile pod, but with only 24-inch range, but it is still Assault 2, so it's still hitting relatively hard, and this is another very decent increase in her damage output. The Flechette Launcher is unfortunately a pistol, meaning that you can't fire it at range if you want to be firing your other very decent weapons, so it's not going to be used all that much, as you'd only ever fire it in close combat if you didn't want to fall back, and typically you are going to be wanting to fall back with Shadowsun because she can fall back and shoot you with fusion blasters. In any case, the Flechette Launcher has an 18-inch range, strength 3, AP nothing and 1 damage, and it's a pistol 5 weapon, so she does get a fair few shots with it. In general though, this really isn't going to outweigh her fusion blasters and missile pod. She also has that pulse pistol, which is a 12-inch pistol 1 weapon with strength 5, AP nothing and damage 1. Again, not very likely to be used unless she is locked in combat for whatever reason. In any case though, her missile pod is a decent upgrade in her firepower compared with previous, so she's hitting a lot harder on the table, and she was already pretty reasonable with those 2 fusion blasters in her previous incarnation. In terms of special rules, she has quite a lot. Firstly, she has the standard for the greater good for the Overwatch overlapping fields, and she has Master of War to allow her to call Montcar or Cayune, and as per previous, she can still call Cayune twice in 1 game, meaning that she'll be just the same as ever if you want to stand her next to a whole load of massive guns and give them all 4 rerolls to hit provided they didn't move. She has the Defender of the Greater Good special rule, which means that when she's within 3 inches of friendly stealth battlesuits, the units can try and intercept them on a 2+, and for each wound she would lose, the stealth suits instead suffer 1 mortal wound for each one of those. Although to be honest, you're generally going to be better off using saviour protocols, as drones are generally cheaper than stealth suits. She has the Supreme Commander special rule, which was previewed in Warhammer Community. This one states that she can be included in a Tau Empire detachment without preventing other units from that detachment gaining a Septenet, though she can only ever gain the benefit of a Septenet herself if it happens to be Coordinated Fire Arcs, the one that the Tau Sept gets for 5+ Overwatch. So she is still going to be better in a Tau detachment, but now she's a lot more viable alongside other Septs, which I think is nice. As per standard stealth suit deployment, she has the Infiltrator special rule, meaning that she can be set up anywhere on the battlefield that's more than 12 inches away from the enemy deployment zone and enemy models, although it might be throwing caution to the wind a little bit, putting your Supreme Commander up where she can potentially be shot by the enemy. Though I guess it could get those fusion blasters firing from turn 1 if you wanted to use her more for damage output, and you knew you were going first. Finally, she has the Camouflage Field special rule, which means that it's -1 to hit her and any of her accompanying drones. Now finally we get on to the drone special rules. First of all, her command link drone. This one can be used to give 1 friendly Tau Empire unit rerolls of 1 within 12 inches, which isn't too bad if they want to be firing at something that doesn't have a marker light on it, though the drone does have to be within 3 inches of Shadowsun to be able to grant this buff. And secondly, her advanced Guardian drone has a 4+ invul save as a shield drone does, and it gives a 3-inch aura of 6+ feel no pain, basically rolling a d6 for each wound lost by a friendly Tau Empire model within 3 inches of this model, and on a 6 that wound is not lost. Note that this doesn't have to be Shadowsun, it can be literally anything. It's a small aura, but if you really wanted to set up to maximise this feel no pain type save, you could easily cram in several Riptides or multiple Broadsides into that 3-inch aura, and have them profit from that 6+ feel no pain while the drone is alive. Note that because of the way that the drone models are set up, the command link drone and the Guardian drone will have to be set up next to each other and stay within unit coherency of each other all game. Though I could genuinely see it being more efficient to just leave both of them with your gun line giving it that 6+ feel no pain aura, while Shadowsun goes and buffs things with Cayune, and then maybe goes hunting things with fusion blasters. So an absolute ton of special rules there. Overall, Shadowsun is a powerful buffing commander who will do her absolute normal thing with Cayune, maybe a little bit better now her drone can hand out some defensive buffs as well, and after she's done making everyone hit better, she can jump out and start frying things with fusion blasters and also missiles now. Not at all bad for 127 points, but let's have a think about any other ways that we can get more out of her on the table. In terms of her Warlord trait, Shadowsun has Exemplar of Cayune, which is the one where if she hasn't moved in the movement phase, she can reroll failed hit rolls. Frankly, this is a good reason not to make her your Warlord. She can already do this twice a game through Cayune anyway. She has really good movement and assault weapons, and it's great to be taking advantage of that, and at best it's only going to transcribe to rerolling 1s, because she hits on a 2+ anyway. Not worth it in my opinion. She'll naturally be profiting from 5+ Overwatch should you happen to choose her in a Tau Sept. 5+ Overwatch is great, and is always great when you can fire it when you're not even being charged yourself. Their focus fire stratagem is also very powerful. Shadowsuns could certainly either trigger or receive that. +1 to wound is great with those fusion blasters, and it's basically great on anything you want to focus down. In terms of stratagems, she can potentially heal a few wounds with automated repair system if it's vital, though this is a little bit pricey at 2 CP. Command and control node is a decent option for her, as she's often going to want to spend a turn or two calling Cayune to bring down the rain of missiles and plasma on the enemy. meaning she'll often be out of range with those fancy fusion blasters, and giving a battlesuit unit within 6 inches reroll wounds is very powerful indeed for 1 command point. I'd bear in mind multi-spectrum sensor suite. 1 command point to ignore cover could be handy against a key target, particularly with that missile pod. Euroweb system jammer for 2 command points can apply a -1 to hit penalty on an enemy unit this shooting phase, particularly good if the enemy's got a big Death Star shooting unit that's lining up to fry some Tau. Orbital Ion Beam is an option with her as a battlesuit commander. It is very expensive, but as with the Space Marine Orbital Strike stratagem, could sometimes be worth it if the enemy has an absolute ton of units bunched up all in a line. So how would I use Oshazera in battle then? Basically I think that for her points cost and her powerful abilities there are actually multiple right ways to use her, although similarly to how she has been used I suspect it's still going to be the strongest. Being able to call Kayun twice is probably the most powerful of all her abilities, so typically in deployment I would set her up next to the rest of the Tau firebase, particularly things like riptides and broadsides, and have them blasting away incredibly accurately for a couple of turns. If she's in range with those fusion blasters, of course it makes sense to keep her shooting, but if not I'd certainly be considering using command and control node each turn to give a battlesuit reroll to wounds as well, which is just crazy when it's applied to a big unit of broadsides, and not half bad on things like riptides either. In an ideal world you'd like to have the drone units right next to her, but also out of line of sight, so if you could deploy her next to a ruin wall and have the drone units within 3 inches of her on the other side, then that would be great, to stop them just getting gunned down straight away because of how valuable they are. The command link drone could be used to apply a reroll ones to hit on one of the nearby units, hopefully one that isn't affected by Kayun because it's too far away. And the advanced Guardian drone really wants to be next to a couple of big battlesuits, or perhaps even some Tau vehicles, to give them a 6+ feel no pain type save. While this little drone is alive, this is genuinely one of her more powerful abilities, because applying a small defensive buff to really big units is actually really quite decent. So you really want to be having this little guy survive as long as possible. Once she's finished Kayuning the units around her, she'll be wanting to move forward and get those fusion blasters to work on the enemy. She'll be strongest at taking out things like medium vehicles, though of course her fusion blasters will depend on which ones you chose to armour with. Both are good in my opinion, and they're both fairly well balanced. She's fairly manoeuvrable, and you can also advance and shoot all her weapons, so she really can be a bit of a disruption piece to try and bring the fights to the enemy. Although I think that this is the best use of her, you could most certainly be more aggressive with her right from the start, particularly against certain matchups that you want to apply maximal pressure to, or if your strategy is involving being very aggressive with use of things like Cold Star battlesuits, or Yavaras or things. Having a bunch of extra fusion blaster shots that starts 12 inches from the enemy certainly isn't bad at all, and she can use her many buffs to help out the aggressive units rather than the defensive. In general, you want Shadowsun somewhere where she can be deploying her firepower, while also staying as safe as possible from enemy reprisals, ideally screened by your other units, and maybe out of line of sight of as much as possible aside from her intended targets, which she should be fairly good at achieving with that 8-inch movement and the option to advance. If you are being aggressive with her, I'd certainly consider leaving that fragile Guardian drone somewhere, back buffing a tough backfield unit or two, and not worry too much about the command link drone. But if you don't have any decent units to do that for, then you could just take them along with her, although there is a high likelihood that they will just get gunned down if you're deploying them aggressively. Overall, I think that Shadowsun is a really powerful unit, very good for her points cost, and I could see her making a very positive contribution to a lot of Tau Empire armies. I like the way that they've made it a lot more flexible, allowing her to lead armies from other septs now, which might see some more interesting development alongside all of those custom sept tenets that have just come out alongside the greater good. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, particularly if you've had any experience using the new Shadowsun rules yet. I'd dearly like to hear it. If you'd like to hear any other Tau reviews, then let me know as well, though I'll admit that the schedule is pretty tight with all the armies I'm already covering. I could do something on custom sept tenets, Farsight enclaves, or the new prototype weapons if it'd be helpful. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you've enjoyed this, as I have new 40k tactics content coming out every single day. And if you'd like to support the channel, then I have a Patreon link down in the description below. Making these videos takes quite a long time, so any support is certainly appreciated. Plus, by becoming a Patreon, it allows you to get access to early videos, some exclusive army lists and tournament reports, and voting on the future of the channel for videos coming up. Thanks again for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.